Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight on a Bortnikoff, actually one of my favorite brands, Dmitry Bortnikoff, and just some updated news, if you will. Dmitry Bortnikoff and Russian Adam of the House Arise-Ledore launched some new perfumes under the brand Feel Oud. Feel Oud was their oud distilling service that they were basically partners on before they went their own ways, okay? So they've now come back together, and if you watch some of my interviews with Russian Adam, he mentioned that he was actually very strict in the fact that he didn't want to have Dmitry Bortnikoff's work influence him. And, likewise, Dmitry had his own style, and he didn't want Russian Adam's work to influence him. And so they sort of went their own ways, if you will, for a little bit. And now they've come back together, like a decade after creating Feel Oud, almost a decade. And so it's really something I'm looking forward to. I ended up buying one of the 3 scents. I hope to get to try them all, but it's feel-oud.com. They really need to buy feeloud.com. But it's feel-oud.com if you want to go check those scents out. I ended up buying Oud Balsam. That's the one that most appealed to me. But Oud de Grand, I think, is the other one, and Sunrise and Sunset. The other 2 look good, but Oud Balsam looked like the one that was probably closest to my taste, so that's the one I went for. Complete blind buy, never smelled it. But so sticking with the artisanal theme, today I actually reviewed an Ensar Oud called Rumi, and I really enjoyed Rumi. I can still sort of smell the remnants on my hand here, and so I wanted to continue the artisanal theme. We'll make this like a artisanal Sunday, if you will. And today I am going to talk about a new fragrance from the house of Dmitry Bortnikoff that actually has 1 review. And interestingly enough, the review on YouTube is done by the Dua brand. Okay, so a brand that copies fragrances, a clone house, basically, is the way that I look at Dua. Dua will say otherwise, but that's sort of what they are. They take popular fragrances and they try to clone them for much cheaper. So the review of Scheherazade is done by the Dua brand, which is crazy. So there's no reviews of this on YouTube, basically. And so, again, the fragrance is Scheherazade. And Scheherazade, if you know 1001 Nights, is sort of one of the main characters in the story. So that's what it's based off of, 1001 Nights. And I'll just give you a little bit of backstory. So first of all, this is not going to be a very long review, mostly because I am extremely disappointed in this scent. And I'm really hoping that, the Feel Oud collaboration with Russian Adam has nothing to do with what Dmitry Bortnikoff has been doing lately, because I know he's had some personal issues and all of that stuff, but the stuff that I've smelled from his brand, the last 4 fragrances that I've smelled from the house have been extremely poor. And this goes back to the end of 2022, because what ended up happening in 2022 is Dmitry Bortnikoff's line launched 3 colognes. And actually, I'm one of the few people that covered that launch. It sort of just got completely overlooked by everybody. I have a live stream on it. If you go to my live streams, you can find the Dmitry Bortnikoff live stream. And we ended up covering the 3 colognes. One was Cologne de la Terre. The other is Cologne Celeste. And the final one was Cologne de Feu. Cologne de Feu. And I have to give a special shout out to Fragnanimous for sending me these little samples to test. Lee is a great guy if you're looking for Bortnikoff, Russian Adam, Meleg, that kind of stuff, those artisanal houses. He's really somebody to check out. Lee's fantastic. And I get nothing for saying that. He's just a friend that did right by me in the past, and I like to sort of pass those types of people's names along. So it's fragnanimous.com. So anyways, so Scheherazade is released basically as and this is also a Fragnanimous sample, but this was not sent to me by Lee. This was sent to me by a friend in the community to talk about. So Scheherazade basically is a standalone release. So it's completely different from those 3 colognes. So whenever this came out as a standalone, I was really hoping and praying that this is Dmitry Bortnikoff getting back on track, that basically those colognes were like a one-off, almost like a bad dream, and that Dmitry Bortnikoff would wake up from that and not do anything else in that style. Unfortunately, Scheherazade is a continuation of sort of the work he was doing with those colognes, and I'll talk to you a little bit about why. But again, this is not going to be a long review because it doesn't merit a long review. I've worn this to bed now 3 times. This is the 3rd time I've worn it to bed. And I can tell you that Scheherazade falls in the sort of style of fragrance as those colognes, which is very disappointing because I think the colognes were actually a little bit cheaper. This is $350 for 50 mil, standard Bortnikoff pricing. And so this is basically a fruity, fresh fragrance is the way that I would describe it, okay? So it opens up. Actually, the opening is not terrible because the opening gives me an image, a very specific 3D image of an apricot pit. So you ever eaten like an entire apricot or an entire peach, and what's left is the pit? And let's say you put the apricot pit on a napkin or a paper towel or something like that, and you just set it aside for 12 hours. You come back the next day and you smell it, and it sort of has that dried, it still has the smell of the pit of the apricot or the peach, but it's sort of dried, and that's the opening. And so when you first spray, there's hope, okay? There's hope for the fragrance because actually it's a very interesting opening. Not what I would expect from him, but interesting and different. The problem is that lasts about 5 seconds. And then what ends up coming in 5 to 10 seconds later is what they call a red mandarin orange with bergamot. And so the biggest problem for this fragrance to me is that it's the exact same issue I had with the colognes. I do not like the way that Bortnikoff does the citrus notes. I think they're very poor. I don't think they're done very, very proper. And to make matters even worse, this red mandarin orange is literally one of the notes in Cologne Celeste. So one of the ones that I did not like has this exact same Cologne Celeste has this exact same red mandarin note, and they mix it with blood orange in that particular fragrance. Now, Cologne Celeste is almost even a little more interesting because it's mixed with things like beeswax and pine and stuff like that, but it still is a very poor interpretation. And it's almost like Bortnikoff going into a completely different realm, a completely different world, a different society, a culture and a society where he doesn't understand is what it feels like to me. It feels like he's venturing into a country where he doesn't speak the language and he's just instantly trying to fit in, and it doesn't work. Honestly, to me, it does not work at all. And I hate to say that about a brand that I love so much because I have things like Musk Habib, Chypre du Nord, Oud Monarch, Oud Maximus, Lao Oud, Amber Cologne. I mean, there's another one. There's an Oriental style oud that he's done that I have a full bottle of. I've shown it on the channel before. I have like 7 full bottle Bortnikoffs that I purchased all with my own money. None were sent to me by the brand or anything like that. And I love those fragrances. And so whenever this trend started happening, I was really disappointed. And I was hoping that Scheherazade would be sort of a break from this cologne trend, like it was like a one-off thing, and unfortunately it's not. So, but what ends up happening is that red mandarin orange comes in mixed with blackcurrant absolute, and the red mandarin orange and bergamot plays with that apricot peach pit like smell, like a dried pit. And it's very slightly peppery, but it has this very strange freshness about it. It's basically like a fruity, fresh, woody fragrance. Fruity, fresh, woody fragrance. Because what ends up happening as it continues to dry down is it brings in what Perfumes shows as Indian sandalwood and Lebanon cedar. So sandalwood and cedar combination. Which, I guess if you're Creed or something like that, that's fine. But that combination should not be dominating the dry down in a Dmitry Bortnikoff, not to me anyways. And so what I was continuing to hope for is that there's a note of Malayan oud in the base. And Malayan oud in the base is the one that I was really going, okay, this is where it's going to come out, and there's going to be this animalic entrance of the oud, and never happens at all. None. Not even close. And so I was just so disappointed, and really the questions that I've seen people ask about this fragrance is it similar to Sayat Nova, which I have a review on. If you're interested in my thoughts on Sayat Nova, go check out my review. It's a fantastic fragrance. I think Sayat Nova is a Bortnikoff, whereas Scheherazade is a shell of Bortnikoff to me. It really is not up to standards of, you know, what I expect from the brand. And Sayat Nova, the reason people keep asking about it, came out 3 years ago, by the way, in 2020, is that it also has an apricot oud base. But the difference is the oud in Sayat Nova is there. It's noticeable. It's a big part of the scent. There's like a trio of ouds. There's Laotian oud, Bengali oud, and Thai oud. And it's basically this apricot, narcissus, rum, vanilla. Now, there's also vanilla in the base of Scheherazade, but the vanilla in the woods sort of just take over from this nondescript fruity freshness that happens with Scheherazade. But with Sayat Nova, you get sort of the animalic oud. There's also a very interesting rum note. It's heavily, it's like a big, heavy Oriental style fragrance that feels like a Bortnikoff. It really does. Even though it's sweet, that's one of the biggest downsides of Sayat Nova, is it's sweet. It still feels like a Bortnikoff. Whereas this, Scheherazade almost feels like some sort of like an imitation. It feels like somebody pretending to be Dmitry Bortnikoff. And I hate saying that. It literally hurts my heart to say that because I love Bortnikoff's work. I think his ability to play with florals and you know, he uses these florals like magnolia and champaka and these flowers that are off the beaten path. He uses them so brilliantly and beautifully. Nobody can match the beauty of the florals with the oud, and he is a very you know, unique figure in the artisanal world. You know, and he uses these blue lotus notes and all these crazy flower notes that are just absolutely brilliant. And so I really hope, my hope is that Dmitry Bortnikoff gets back to being himself again, you know, and starts making fragrances that you know, that the public at large appreciates again. Because I do think, and even if you go look at Perfumes and go to Scheherazade, it's only been out a couple months. And, you know, the very first comment on there is, well, actually, that's not Scheherazade. I'm sorry. I was looking at the colognes. But for the cologne, for example, the one I was looking at is a comment by someone that just says, he wrote just bad work by Bortnikoff. And unfortunately, that's how I feel. I just feel it really is bad work. You could make the case, I guess, that objectively the smell is pleasant, but I am not paying $350 for a citrusy, apricot, pit, vanilla, woody fragrance. Like, where, you know, where's the oud? Where's everything you expect from a Bortnikoff? It's missing. It's completely on vacation. So my hope is that those Feel Oud fragrances, that Russian Atom is grounding them, and that this type of work from Bortnikoff is not showing up in those fragrances. That's my hope, because this is not what I have come to expect from Dmitry Bortnikoff, unfortunately. So I really hope that he can get back to being his true self and, you know, releasing the type of perfumery that we know he is capable of. And, you know, one thing that is hard, and I know it's hard because Russian Atom has told me how hard it is, you know, for example, with Russian Atom, he releases, you know, let's say Siberian Musk 1, Siberian Musk 2, so forth and so on, right? So there's like a distinct line. It's a different fragrance. Bortnikoff, for the most part, outside of, you know, he called Oud Maximus 2020 one fragrance and Oud Maximus 2019 was another, and that sort of thing. Most of it, though, he just has like Musk Habib, and that's it. There's no Musk Habib 2 or 3. So with as much naturals as his house uses, it must be very hard to try and keep everything smelling the same as things change and stuff like that. So I'm sure he is a busy, busy man trying to keep all that going, and all of the other issues, let's say, that he's dealing with. But I really hope that he can get the house back to the house that I love, the house that made me buy all those fragrances on, you know, basically once I discovered the house in 2019 or whatever it was. I just dove headfirst in, and I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did, because I'm glad to have the Bortnikoffs that I have. I cherish them. I adore them. You know, they're one of my favorite wears. When I wear Musk Habib or Oud Monarch or Oud Maximus or Mysterious Oud, that's the other one. Mysterious Oud, those are just, I mean, pure loves for me. Pure absolute loves. Groundbreaking love fragrances. Some of the fragrances that really got me into Oud. And, but if this is the type of stuff Bortnikoff's going to be putting out from now on, I won't be buying any more Bortnikoffs, unfortunately. It's sad because they're one of the houses that I really hold in high regard. But if this is, you know, the path that they're going, it's pretty much a house that I guess I'll continue to sample. I would love to see things change and turn the corner, but this last year or so has not been kind to the house of Bortnikoff. So, unfortunately, sad to say, that is my take on Scheherazade. Like I said, really not much to say about it. It really is oh, and you know what else? I've worn this 3 times now. 3. Because the first time I was like, my nose must be messed up. There's no way this is Scheherazade. And then the second time I was like, shit, this really is Scheherazade. And now the third time, I'm kind of coming out of that shock phase of this is actually what, you know, what they released as Scheherazade. So I wanted to make sure, because at first I thought, no way, like there must be a mistake. Either my nose was overwhelmed or I missed something, and I really wanted to pay attention for times 2 and 3, and nope, this is it. I mean, this is what they released. Very, very disappointing. So I hope this motivates him to sort of get back in the saddle. I hope working with Russian Adam gets him back to, you know, the Mount Olympus that we think of him as one of the greatest oud distillers. But as it stands right now, the House of Bortnikoff is in dire straits. And again, I really do wish him the best, because he is one of my favorite creators, you know, people in the artisanal scene. I really hold his house in high regard, but it's just, you know, sometimes this sort of thing happens, and sometimes it's a blip and the house can get back to what it is, and sometimes it can be fatal. I mean, if they go down this route and never return, you know, we'll be talking about Bortnikoff as, man, remember the days when you could buy Oud Maximus and Oud Monarch and all this stuff and Lao Oud. And so I'm hoping that's not the case, but there's still a lot of Bortnikoffs I have not tried. I'm not saying that the ones I have are the only good ones. I also have videos on stuff like L'Air Exquise and Bonaire. I did a video on Bonaire, but that's discontinued. But I've never smelled things like Classica, although I do have a sample. I've never smelled Oud Al Sultan. I've never smelled Oud Cologne. I've never smelled Oud Lukuwam. I've never smelled Oud Scheherazade, although I think I have samples of some of those floating around. I've never smelled Sans Fleur. I've never smelled Santa Sangre. I've never smelled Sir Winston, although I bought a bottle of Sir Winston and it literally broke and spilled everywhere. So I tried to buy Sir Winston, but it didn't work. I've never smelled Symphonie de Neroli. I have a video on Tabac Doré. I've never smelled Triad. I've never smelled Vesna Cologne. I've never smelled Vatany. I've never smelled Vetiver Nocturne. I've never smelled Zemfira. So there's a lot from the house I haven't smelled yet. So I hate doing this video, but unfortunately that is truly how I feel, that it is not a very good release. It's a poor release on Scheherazade. So anyways, that's my thought. If you've smelled Scheherazade, do leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the whole House of Bortnikoff and the Feel Oud releases. And so I hope everyone has a great evening. Hope to see you in the comments. Cheers, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.